FBS will be in the range of 90 to 100. FBS, what is FBS? Fasting blood sugar. For a young person, of 90 to 100. When I say young person, the age group is 20 to 30. Am I correct with the statement? People's fasting blood sugar will be in the range of 90 to 100 milligram per deciliter, particularly when they are in the age group of 20 to 30. You don't have to test them for diabetes. You can take it granted that they are non-diabetic and then they can eat whatever they want. This is a common belief. And so it is null. But as a researcher, I wanted to study this, because I strongly suspect that nowadays people are becoming diabetic even in the age group of 20 to 30. Yes. So I wanted to break this null hypothesis. I wanted to get this null hypothesis rejected. So what should I do? I should do a study. I will do a study, collect data, and then write a paper. If it is significantly, proved, if it is statistic, the study is statistically significant, it will get published and people will get an awareness that you might get diabetics in the age group of 20 to 30 also because of the poor lifestyle and eating habits. Some change is required, right? So I select statistics now. What is the statistics I am going to take? I am going to make use of average fasting blood sugar. Average is the statistics. This is the statistics which is going to be helping me to arrive on the decision. I will set a significance level. Why should I set a significance level? Any study I do, I must tell them my confidence level. So I give a finding and I should also tell the confidence level. So I must limit my error. The error is limited to 5%. That means my confidence level will be 95% according to the study I have conducted. So alpha is called the level of significance. Level of significance is 5%. Now, rejection criteria. When will you consider a person as diabetic? Can somebody comment now? When will you consider a person as diabetic?
Greater than 100.
Greater than 100. Suppose your reading is 100.1. Will you start taking medicines for diabetes?
No.
Just now you told more than 100 is diabetic, but you don't want to take medicine. That means you are now doubting. Oh, 100.1, how can I can consider as a fact? Always there will be a border region, am I right?
Yes, sir.
Between India and Pakistan, there is a border. Only when the border is crossed, you will be given a special treatment. You know what will happen if you cross the border, right? So similarly, my statistics average, if it crosses the 100, I don't consider that as significant. I don't react too much. 100.1, I will ignore. 100.2 also I will ignore. How long I can, consider as insignificant. This value will help me understand on that. 5%. When I fix level of significance as 5%, now I understand I can tolerate up to 111.45. I can tolerate up to 111.45. But when my reading of fasting blood sugar goes beyond 111, maybe doctors might say up to 110, you can okay. But now we are too accurate with the finding. It will help you understand the calculation I am giving like that. So whenever your readings goes above 110, now doctor will also advise you to take medicines. You will also start taking medicine. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And any observation between 100 and 111, you will simply think that those readings could be due to a random chance. Am I correct? It is not the diabetics problem, or it is not the real, what do you call, the insulin. The insulin is not functioning. That is not really due to the insulin, but maybe some other thing because of which you could have overeaten something, and so the sugar level is high. Nothing to do with your pancreas and insulin and its function. So that's why you wanted to ignore the finding. This is called a random event making things to happen in your study. If a random chance creates your data, you will ignore. But if really pancreas failure makes your data go beyond 111, you cannot ignore. Am I right? That is what we are trying to understand. So now calculate the sample statistics. How do you calculate sample statistics? I collect data from 100 people in a particular city where I am interested in finding out. I take a random sample of 100 people. I will use the sampling technique, all the intelligence I have, and then I will take a random sample, collect their blood samples and send it to lab. I get their sugar values. Now 100 readings I will get. All 100 readings, I take the average, 115.3. What is this 115.3? Representative of all the 100 samples, am I right?
Yeah.
And sample is the sample is a representative of all the young people in the locality. So this single number is representing all the people in the age group of 20 to 30 in the city where I did the study, and the average itself going beyond the rejection point. Is it giving you any significant information or it is giving an insignificant information? Already you decided what is significant and what is insignificant. Up to 111, you considered insignificant. But beyond 111.45, you made up your mind that it is significant. Why you consider it is significant? Because that contains only 5% chance to happen. Only 5% chance is there for your statistics to go beyond 111. You can find out this value if you thoroughly understand the normal distribution. I'll teach you that. So 115.3, is it beyond the rejection point or within the rejection point?
Beyond.
Beyond. That is mean your data now belongs to zone of significance. What is zone of significance? Critical region. Unless and until your factor influences, your data cannot go enter the critical region. Unless and until something happens intentionally, purposefully, a factor is influencing your process, then only your data can enter, your average can enter the critical region. You have seen your data entering the critical region. So start trusting the data. Please understand your data is now giving you a true alarm. This cannot be a false alarm, because the chance for a false alarm to come from your data is definitely limited to 5%. How do you say? Because your data has already entered the 5% zone, which is critical zone, critical region. So now you have taken a decision to reject the null hypothesis. Now this study will now will appear as headlines in all the newspaper tomorrow. Am I correct or not? A study from a so-and-so university, so-and-so research institution, and so-and-so researcher has found that people have started becoming diabetic even in the age group of 20 to 30. So we must alert ourselves in terms of reverting back to a better lifestyle and eating healthy foods. Otherwise, even in the age of 20 to 30, you might get diabetic. So people will start testing for the diabetes. This is called hypothesis testing. Is that clear? How a null hypothesis is rejected?
Yeah.
And now somebody tell me, null hypothesis is rejected. Does it mean all the people in the age group of 20 to 30 are diabetic and everybody should start taking medicine?
No.
No.
We have to reframe.
Null hypothesis is rejected, but alternate hypothesis is yet to be investigated for acceptance. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is the essence of hypothesis testing. This is how you must talk. You should not say, I reject the null, so accept the alternate. No, you reject the null, and now your suspect increases on alternate.
Yes, sir.
You can further do an experimentation. The next weapon is design of experiments. Intensify your study to accept the alternate hypothesis. So the decision is arrived only on the null hypothesis. Either I will reject the null or I do not reject the null. Even rejecting the null doesn't mean no alternate is true. Chance of trueness for alternate is more. That's what you understand. Hope all of you are with me on this.
Yeah.
Okay, how to understand the significance? I think there is a spelling mistake. There are two methods. One is called test characteristics method. Another thing is called the p-value. The second method is quite easier. I will teach you both. The first method, test characteristics value, if it is more than the table value. What is this test characteristics value? The test characteristics values are nothing but your Z score, or you call it G score, T score, chi-square score, and F score. There are many scores available depending on your distribution. If the distribution is Z distribution, the score is Z score. I think all of you know there is a Z distribution, normal distribution table available, standard normal distribution. That will give you the Z score. For whatever value of your average, you can calculate the Z score, right? And for every Z score, there is a probability. What is the probability for your Z score to be 0 and above? If somebody can answer this question, I will strongly believe that you have carefully understood the important discussions. What is the probability for your Z score to be 0 and above? Standard normal distribution discussed?
Yeah.
Yeah, please tell me. What is the probability for your Z score to be 0 and above?
It's 0 and above. It's more than equal to mean and above mean.
What is the probability? Probability can be somewhere from 0 to 1.
Okay.
What is the probability of your Z score to be 0 and above?
0.99%. 0.99.
0.5%.
Beautiful. 0.5%. Fantastic observation. If for your Z score to be 0 and above.
One second, may I come?
Yes.
Can I come?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Please note, I think we have already completed these sessions. You have to be very careful in your statement. There are three values, very important. One is 1 million, another is 100, another is 1. What he was asking was probability. Therefore, you should say only 0.5, not 0.5%. And if it is 100, you should say 50%. Or you should say 5 lakh DPMO, right? These are all the three things. Either you can say DPMO, or you can say percentage, or you can say probability. The whole area under the standard normal distribution curve is either 1 or 100 or 1 million. Keep this in mind, because if it is 1, the center point is 0. Therefore, probability is 50% or probability is, you can say 50% or 0.5, right? On the left-hand side or on the right-hand side. Thank you, sir.
Very good point to bring it at this stage, right? There is a probability, there is a percentage, and there is also DPMO or PPM. Accordingly, you must divide, right? Probability means 0.5 on the right side, 0.5 on the left side. Very good. And now, the calculated Z score, if it is more than the tabulated Z score, I will reject my null, because I understand that the observation is significant. Why do I say the observation is significant? Because my statistics has entered the critical region, zone of criticality. So that can happen only when the calculated statistics is more than the tabulated statistics. It is Z score or it is T score or whatever, right? And when I say significant, that means what? My data is giving a true alarm. The chance that my data can give a true alarm is 95% or more. That is the meaning, right? Method 2. Convert your Z score into a p-value. So p-value is slightly different from probability. You can calculate probability between any two. You can calculate probability between any 2 points. What is the probability that you might score between 0 to 100 in the black belt exam? Can somebody tell me? What is the probability that? Yeah, 1. You can score between 0 to 100, probability is 1. And Similarly, you can always calculate the probability for your Z score to be the observed value or above. You can always calculate the probability of your Z score to be the observed value and above. Let us say the observed value is like the same value, 1.645. Observed value is 1.645. Now, above 1.645, what is the end point? After 1.645, you have 2.645, you have 3.645, and I go up to what? Infinity.
Infinity.
So if I calculate probability between the observed Z score and the infinity, that is called p-value. That is called p-value. Already I fixed my critical region as last 5%. Already I fixed my critical region as last 5%. If the calculated p-value is less than 5%, it simply means my statistics has entered the critical region. And so the information from my data is significant. The alarm cannot be considered as a false alarm. The chance that the alarm can be a true alarm is definitely above 95% because the critical zone is only 5%. So calculate the p-value, and if the p-value is less than 0.05, I will understand that the difference is significant, right? So p-value is the probability of my test characteristics being observed or above, sorry, my test characteristics more than or equal to the observed value. Done. So now there is a normal distribution and the center value is 95, maybe for the same case 90 to 100 blood sugar level. This 95 is the blood sugar level, observed blood sugar. What is the unit of this? Milligram per deciliter. Can I convert the 95 into a G score? Yes, you can convert the 95 into a G score. The formula is observed value minus target value divided by standard deviation of the population. Observed value minus target value divided by standard deviation of the population. Now tell me, what is your target value of blood sugar level for you? What do you want your sugar level to be? Your sugar level to be 90, you want to be on 90 or 100, or you want it to be 95?
95.
Wow, you are targeting to maintain a sugar level of 95. And you actually take a sugar test and your reading is also 95. Your X is 95, mu is also 95. Right? You take multiple reading and average is also 95. And now I convert that into, I want to convert that into a Z score, right? So observed value 95, target value also 95. The difference is how much? 0. And population standard deviation, let us say it is known to me, then only I can go for Z score, right? So I assume as population standard deviation of 10. So 0 by 10 is 0.
0.
So the corresponding Z score for a X value of 95 is 0. So what will be the p-value for this X score of 95? What is the p-value for the X score of 95?
50%.
50%, very good. So for my X value to be 95 and above is 50%. That is equal to my Z score to be 0 and above. Because when my X is exactly on the target, my Z will be 0. So X 95 and above, probability of X being 95 and above is equal to probability of Z being 0 and above. Right? So I draw the line, it divides the curve into 2 off. Right side area is 0.5, left side area is 0.5. Very good. So see here, p-value X more than 95 is 0.5. Is it correct?
Correct.
Yes. And now this, now I move my 95 slightly to the right side. 95 becomes 100. Now what will happen to the p-value? 0.5 will go down. Am I correct? And then from 100, I move on to 105. 0.5 will further go down.
Further go down.
Yes. And now I go to 111.4. I observe that my 50% has come down to 5%. When it happens, when my X value becomes 111.45, I understand the p-value becomes 5%. That means I am about to enter the critical region. Do you all now understand?
Yeah.
This is how you can identify or understand the entry point of your critical region. Any value you observe above this, you can conclude you have entered the critical region. You have crossed the border. Instead of verifying this, you can simply look at your p-value and make the same conclusion. Am I correct? P-value,
Yeah.
when it becomes 5% and below, it simply means you already crossed the border. So looking at the p-value and taking the decision is easier. Whenever p-value is less than 5%, the alarm cannot be a false alarm, or the chance that the alarm can become a false alarm is limited to 5%. Because the whole chance available is only 5%. The last 5% of the events are observed in your sample study. If at all it can become a false alarm, the probability for your observation to become a false alarm is limited only to 5%. That means you have gained a confidence level of 95%. Hope it is understood, right? And now my value comes here. Now can somebody tell me what could be the p-value now? The yellow color, this yellow color region will be smaller than the red color region, right?
Correct.
What is the size of the red color region? 5%. If your yellow color bigger than the red color region, you can understand still you have not crossed, still your statistics has not crossed the rejection point. Still you have not entered the critical region. Only when you enter the critical region, you consider the observation as significant. This is the main, essence of hypothesis testing. So your
Sir, can you come again?
Sir, can you repeat? We lost.
Yeah, we lost you in the connection.
Oh. So whenever you are reading, this is sample statistics. Whenever your sample statistics crosses the rejection line, you can understand your process has entered the critical region. If your process enters the critical region, you know what will happen? The worst 5% of the outputs will start coming out. Do you want your process to produce the worst outputs?
No.
No, I want my process to produce output somewhere here. That's how I designed it. But now the same process is now deviated, and now it is producing the last 5% of the output which it is capable of producing. I am not here to receive that. How do I know? I will look at the sample statistics. I will look at the rejection point. This rejection point is not the specification limit. You need to understand. Right? And now, alternatively, instead of doing these complex numbers, you look at the p-value. If p-value is less than 5%, what does it mean? Your process has entered the critical region, or your process outputs started falling in the critical region. So consider the observation as significant. Go and make changes in the process. You cannot be wrong easily. You are taking decisions very wisely, because making changes in a process in your organization, I believe it is not that easy. Am I correct? You can't just like that, change every single day. You have to be confident enough to make the suggestion and then make the changes. So Z score more than 1.645 simply means p-value less than 5%. P-value less than 5% means definitely your alarm is not a false alarm, it's a true alarm. So p-value is the risk of observing the data due to random chance. Now tell me, p-value less than 5% means what you observe, is it due to random or is it due to the factor? Is it due to the factor? It can be due to random, but that chance is only 5%. That means the chance that it can be due to the factor is 95%. This is what we call it, confidence level. Even if everything is normal, right? Even if your process is not deviated, still what you observed might happen. But how much chance is available for that? Only 5%. This is what is called level of significance, alpha, right? So you can use this logic to convert any variable, not only for fasting blood sugar. You can use it for any variable of interest, dimension, length, compressive strength, hardness, only to use this concept to all industries to solve all your life problems. Normal distribution is converted into a standard normal distribution. Normal distribution, average can be any value. Fasting blood sugar average can be any value. But when you convert into Z-score, the center will be always 0. Average, if you equal to 0, and standard deviation, if you equal to 1, your normal distribution take the shape of standard normal distribution. All problems in the world can be solved using the ready-made solution available with or associated with standard normal distribution. Right? For all problems, the solution is available in the standard normal distribution table. Only thing is you must convert the solution in terms of the Z into the solution in terms of the X. Fixing your X is the solution. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Get your Z, out of the critical zone. Get your Z on the target. That means you will get your X also on the target. We need to work in the reverse order. Right? So at the center, your Z is replaced by your X variable is replaced by a Z-score of 0. And at the rejection point, for a 5% level of significance, for a one-tailed study, Z is 1.645. I convert the level of significance from 5% to 10%. What will happen to Z-score? Z-score will increase or decrease?
Increase.
Decrease.
Decrease. As the level of significance increases, Z-score will decrease. As the level of significance decreases, Z-score will increase. Hope all of you understand, right?
Yes,
So if I convert the one-tailed study into two-tailed study, what will happen to my Z-score? When I make it two-tailed, 2.5% on the right side, 2.5% on the left side. What will happen to my Z-score?
It
Increase.
will also reduce.
Increase. Beautiful, right? So you need to understand whether your study is one-tailed or two-tailed. You need to understand your level of significance is 5% or 1% or 10%. Accordingly, this rejection value will differ, but I don't want you to by heart anything. Don't, remember all these things and then, you no need to think deeper. Simply look at the p-value. Simply look at the p-value. P-value goes below 5%. What you observe is significant. Right? P-value will reflect all these things happening with your standard normal distribution. So p-value is the risk of observing the data due to random chance. And risk is considered low. If risk is low, we continue doing what we are doing already because there is no risk. Risk is low. And when do I consider my risk is low? When my one second. So if P is low, yes, if P is low, if I think I don't want you to use this statement. Let us use this. When P is low, that means the risk of me wrongly understanding the significance is low. So I will decide to reject my null. But when P is high, I will not reject the null. Because when P is high means more than 5%. When P is more than 5%, I still reject the null. Then I might make a wrong conclusion. My conclusion is on the rejection of the null. I will never reject the null wrongly. Right? So generally, in order to consider the low, whether it is low or high, you require the significance level alpha. If alpha is fixed as 5%, any value below 0.05 is considered low. If alpha is fixed as 10%, any value below 0.1 is considered low. If alpha, the level of significance is fixed as 1%, then any value below 0.01 will be considered low and all rest will be considered high. Now, do you understand how to classify p-value as low or high?
Yes.
And these are the different Z-scores I have worked out. You don't have to work out. Like, see, for one-tailed test, Z-score is 1.645. For same thing on left-tailed, it is minus 1.645. For two-tailed, it is 1.96. Sometimes the Dr. RK was talking about the number 1.96, isn't it? Right? All these numbers depends on the type of study and the level of significance. For 5%, for one-tailed, it is 1.645. For two-tailed, it is 1.96. Similarly, for 1% level of significance, the number changes from 1.6 to 2.3. And then for two-tailed, it changes to 2.54575. Similarly, for 10%, it reduces 1.2282. And then for two-tailed, it is 1.645. You can either remember or simply refer the p-value. It is easier to remember, isn't it? Under all these situations, p-value will be below 5%. So which is easier? P-value method is easier. Even if somebody teaches you how to calculate z-score and how to calculate, RK might try to do that. You just listen to him, but be smart enough to look at only p-value and decide. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Why is he teaching so much? Only to keep you mathematically and statistically, do it yourself. But ultimately, you want to take the correct decision that is there ready-made in the p-value, right?
The Z value can only be calculated for a uniform normal distribution.
Yes, Z value is only for normal distribution. Yes. Correct. And if you are, there are different distribution exist. Like normal distribution, z-score, and T distribution will give you T-score. F distribution is for variance, that will give you F-score. And there is one more thing called chi-score distribution, and that will give you chi-score score, and you can do that. Right. And finally, one important